The Mahlkönig EK43 is a great grinder. It is the best grinder that I have in my house. If you ever get one, it'll probably be the best grinder that you will ever get to. But the thing about it is that when does it stop? I think there is a law of diminishing return with grinders, but when you have like the best tools and you can get any coffee in the world to your own palate desires, and you brew a cup and you're not happy, you're not satisfied, where do you go from there? EK43, magical, magical bastard. I was taking a picture yesterday and it looked kind of weird. It looked like I was trolling, actually. Let me explain. Right here, I have in front of me another grinder. This is the 1Z Presso ZP6. We're going to be talking about this another day. I guess I lied about reflections and I didn't lie, but that's another story for another day. And I put it right next to my EK43 grinder. And I was like, this is, I'm going to talk about this soon. It's going to be in my community story, whatnot. But then I started thinking, it's like, that's one of the grinders that I really don't talk about. And let's talk about it. The Mahlkönig EK43 is a great grinder. It is the best grinder that I have in my house. If you ever get one, it'll probably be the best grinder that you will ever get to. With all the innovations with grinders and all that stuff, the EK43 is still the best grinder. There are other ones that are cheaper, that are more approachable, that work really well too, or just as comparable. It can be. But the EK43 is legendary in its own right. I used to have it on my coffee bar for the very longest. I had to change my outlets because the power that it needed would trip the breakers from time to time, depending on whatever I had on. And then it got to the point where I just wanted a simple, easy grinder. So I started going in the rabbit hole of trying to get a basic, easy grinder. So for work, for the longest, my old job, I had a coffee club. And I used a Baratza. And it worked fine on core, worked fine. But then I needed something for home, so then I ventured out to the Baratza Virtuoso. Worked great for many years. I actually gave it out to a friend. And then I forgot about grinders. I knew things were doing this thing in the world of coffee or in the world in general. So I went ahead and didn't care. It didn't matter. But then when I started this YouTube channel, for some odd reason, it probably just gear acquisition syndrome, as you guys know and everything, and girls know, and that's kind of how things happen sometimes. And FOMO, you start to think about if you have enough gear in order to do the things that you're trying to do. So, as I like to talk about your journey, you have seen partials of my journey. So I started getting the itch and try to justify it with not enough clarity in my cup of coffee. So then I bought the Fellow Oat 2. Good grinder. We'll talk about it another day. Got rid of the other grinder, the Baratza, to a friend. I may even actually get another grinder after this grinder that I just got. We'll talk about that another day. But I went down this whole hand grinder phase, the Ken grinder, the K2, the K6. And yeah, we can talk about this versus this and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. But the biggest thing here is that I keep going back to the EK43. I've had the EK43 for about 12 years. I got it when it was hyped. I got it when, this is how old I guess the grinder is that I bought it when it was $2,300. Now it's like $3,300, $3,500. So, and from time to time, I have regular standard burrs on there. I probably do need to get them changed, but it works. And I should be able to get the clarity that I want out of coffee, but it's just different. The way that it grinds coffee it's just magical. It's really, at least for now, the only grinder that I've ever used that's actually usable, from the coarsest grind all the way to the finest grind. All the other grinders, they have that sweet spot to where that's the only measurement or way that you're going to actually use the grinder. Again, I've talked about that before, how most grinders are crap. I can brew an amazing cup with different techniques at the coarsest grind, and it's lovely, and it speaks to me, and it talks to me, and it does all the things that you want a high-end grinder to do, or a grinder in general to do. It gives me a different perspective of when I'm actually drinking my cup of coffee, when I'm basing it off of the fellow grinder, the hand grinder, and just kind of something I haven't done in a while. The thing about the EK43 and the reasons why I don't really talk about it to you, even brag about it to you, is because it's unattainable for most people. Yes, you can spend $3,500 on a grinder and you won't be disappointed. But the thing about it is that when does it stop? I know when I got that grinder, my wife was looking at me crazy. She knew I was crazy already. But then you wonder why you do the things that you do. And you're like, I need to stop. I will spend 10, 15, 20 grand to get that much better understanding about coffee. I'll get that much closer to the maximum amount of clarity and enjoyment out of coffee. It has to stop eventually. And that's the reason why I don't talk about the EK43. Because it's impractical. It's not realistic, especially for you. I think there is a law of diminishing return with grinders, but when you get something that's like the top, you start second guessing yourself about anything and everything, and thinking about if you're doing things right, if you don't have the right beans, if you mess up in your recipe. It's trippy. It's kind of confusing. It's one of those things to where you're like, what happened? What went wrong? And I gotta say, for the most part, I think it's kind of taught me that coffee's just coffee. Sometimes it's just okay. Sometimes we're trying to chase this thing and it's just not there. And those are some of the things that I have to remember, is that even with the best tool in the world, it's okay. It's just coffee. Sometimes it can let us down. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I don't use it as much too, because I get some really good coffees. I'm not saying I'm the best roaster in the world. I'm close. I'm just tooting my own horn, but whatever. Anybody and everybody will say that, right? But when you have like the best tools and you can get any coffee in the world to your own palate desires, and you brew a cup, and you're not happy, you're not satisfied, where do you go from there? I think that's part of the reasons why I don't use it as much as I should. Yeah, this is in the garage. Sure, not a problem. But I guess what I'm saying is that it throws you off. It makes you wonder what all the stuff that you've been doing, listening to and trying to analyze and trying to get to understand and all that stuff. You wonder about like, wow, I got the best tools. I got some of the best coffees. I know how to brew a damn good cup of coffee. I got other instruments that help me get me on that road. And this coffee is just okay. It's kind of disappointing. It's kind of depressing if you really think about it. So now that I'm sitting here psychoanalyzing, having a mental talk with myself and also with you, I think that's probably part of it. Sometimes when you have the best, it's going to disappoint you more than you think. That's why the fellow O2, it works fine. That's why the King grinder works fine. I'm sure this grinder will work just fine. And you're actually paying a fraction of the cost. You know? It's kind of crazy when you think about the reasons why you don't say things and do things and give people more advice about why they should get an EK43 and how it's going to make them, their coffees and everything legendary. And then you just stop and wonder. And you're like, oh, that's why. That's why I don't really talk about the EK43 to you. Because it's kind of attainable. Get your credit card out. Spend your money. Place it in your bar. Probably change your outlet. Probably take some pictures for the gram. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then when you sit there and use it, it throws everything off. No matter what anybody else says, you're there with that grinder and you're just trying to figure it out. You're just trying to wonder about that coffee that you just paid $30 for. It's so damn trippy. And don't get me wrong, you will get amazing cups of coffee. You'll be like, wow, this is what coffee can be. You can get there. But you can also get there with a $100 grinder, a $200 grinder, or $800 grinder. You can get there. You really can get there with those other grinders. But the amount of consistency and different things that you'll be tasting in a cup of coffee, you can only really get it with that type of grinder. Don't get me wrong, I do need to change the burrs. And I think that's the reasons why I would just go with standard burrs with the EK43 instead of these crazy wacky ones, just because different coffees call for different things. That's what I'm realizing now. Sometimes clarity isn't all be all this and all that stuff, right? But I guess what I'm saying to conclude all of this is that the EK43 is the best grinder ever. It is. But do realize that the mental battle that you will go with on and your journey with coffee will absolutely probably crush you because of how good the grinder is and how you will start to second guess if the beans are what they are, or if you know what you're doing, or if you do need to get another thing to make you even better at coffee. That's the crazy thing about the rabbit hole, right? The rabbit hole just keeps going and going and going and going until, in this case, especially for the EK43, you just stop. You can't keep going down the end of the road. And now you're just there stuck because you can't use money to get out of your situation. Sometimes if something's just okay, it's just okay. If that coffee that you bought is just okay to you, it's just okay. And that's perfectly fine, no matter what you do to it. And then other times, many more times than not, you're going to be happy, mesmerized. You're going to be thinking about that coffee for ages. I think that's the high that I'm really trying to get back to. That coffee high, not that just gear high. So yeah, EK43, magical bastard. If you've ever had a cup of coffee from it, I hope that you get your chance to. I really do. It just puts you in a place to where you're like tasting the coffee for what it truly is. The best that it can probably get. And it can get worse if you fuck it up with the brew, or that could just be the coffee. It's not the grinder. In this case, it's never the grinder's fault, especially the EK43. So, that's why. This is Okay to Everyday Beans. I'll talk to you later. Bye.